Well, welcome so much to everyone. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who haven't had a chance to meet me yet today, my name is Amelia Wald. I am the Executive Director of the Virginia Club of New York for one more day. This is actually my very last event with the Virginia Club of New York, and I'm so happy to go out on this note with all of these incredible women and in partnership with the Alumni Association. A few technical notes for today. You'll notice that there is a Q&A box in the right hand of your corner at the bottom of your screen. We're going to use that for our audience Q&A portion of the event. There will be about 15 minutes right at the end where you can ask all of the questions that have been burning in your brain. Feel free to drop a question in the chat or in the Q&A box at any point that it comes into your head, so that way we can revisit it later. You'll also notice that there's a little thumbs up next to our questions. You are welcome to upvote any of other audience members' questions. So feel free to share with our moderators kind of what's top of mind for the audience by liking other folks' questions. So with that, I'm very excited to turn it over to Liz Crowder, who can tell you a bit more about the Retold project in general.
Hi, everyone, and welcome today. We're so thrilled to have you all here and to be joined by this amazing group of alumni panelists. In 2020, the Alumni Association launched the Retold initiative to celebrate the transformational impact of UVA women in honor of two big milestones for women at the university. And part of our mission for this year of celebration is to amplify the stories and accomplishments and impact of UVA women on and beyond grounds. And to connect UVA women with one another in meaningful ways. So our discussion today will feature 4 impressive alumni who are working in the sports industry, and they're going to reflect on their unique journeys to the athletics business. And also reflect on how their time at UVA has shaped their career paths and their goals for empowering other women in the industry. So I'll pass it back to Amelia to introduce our moderator for today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We are so excited to have Anna Cho joining us. She is a former UVA basketball star, and she now is an assistant coach at Navy and additionally oversees the recruiting efforts for Navy women's basketball. So Anna, thank you so much for moderating this conversation. I know you have a personal relationship with several of our panelists, so we're really excited for this engaging conversation.
Thank you, Amelia, and hello, everyone. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation with you all today. And now I'm going to introduce today's panelists, Alvarez, Cynthia Howard, and Chelsea Shine-Wilson. I'm going to give a little bit of a brief intro about who they are, and then we'll get started on this conversation. But Haley is an assistant director, scouting baseball operations for the Oakland A's, and she currently served and completed her first season as the Oakland A's scouting coordinator in 2018, making her the first woman in the front office to be hired as a talent evaluator. She's a 2015 grad of UVA with a Bachelor's of Science in Commerce for the McIntyre School. And Cynthia Howard joined the PGA Tour in 2010 as the Director of New Business Development. Her responsibilities included generating revenue through sales of PGA Tour sponsorship and media assets, including title sponsorships, official marketing partnerships, and media across a portfolio of PGA Tour assets and initiatives. And Cynthia graduated from UVA in 1991 with a BS in sports management. She was a member of the field hockey and lacrosse teams and captured the national title in lacrosse her last 3 years in 1991 as captain. And last but not least, but Chelsea Shine-Wilson, she graduated from the University of Virginia in 2012 with a degree in sociology. During her 4-year playing career with Virginia women's basketball team, she served as team captain, and she surpassed 1,000 points and 500 rebounds while playing the most games in program history. Chelsea worked at the VAF upon graduation as the development director, and in 2013, she transitioned and became a broadcast analyst. And has worked for ESPN, Raycom Sports Network, and Fox Sports, covering both men's and women's college basketball regular season and postseason tournaments. And so just to kick us off, I think because all of us are UVA alumni, I'd love to start a conversation today by hearing a little bit about your UVA experience. What were you involved in as you were a student? What were your career aspirations at the time as you were a student? And how did your experience inform your journey where you are right now? So let's start with Cynthia, then move to Chelsea and Haley.
Hi guys, thanks Anna. I'm excited to be here today and thank you for asking. What was I involved with at UVA? I played field hockey and lacrosse all 4 years. I was in a sorority, and I was also involved with a group called IMPS, and it was a service organization. And you asked what were my career aspirations at the time. I actually was able and lucky to be able to study sports management from the Curry School of Education. I don't believe that that major exists anymore, but it was a combination of physiology and kinesiology, as well as business. And it's sports management. And there are a couple of us out there today that have that degree. Dirk Castro is one of them, and he's the executive director of the VAF. He was my classmate. But I'm sorry that doesn't exist anymore, but you guys have seemed to found your way into sports anyway. So good for you guys, kudos.
I actually worked for Dirk at the Virginia Athletics Foundation. So there's just so many connections that I love that come through the network at UVA. I majored in sociology, and to be completely honest, had no idea what I wanted to do when I entered as a first year, when I graduated. And it sort of hit me after my last college basketball game at the end of my fourth year, sort of what am I going to do? What do I want to do? And I think from there really propelled me. I was interested in communication. That was not a major at the time at Virginia. So I had been majoring in sociology, and then got an internship my fourth year with Jay James at WINA 1070, a local radio station. And that's sort of what sparked my interest, or one of the more tangible experiences that I had with sports, broadcasting, communication. Really enjoyed that. Didn't love the radio side of it, but then through some connections got involved and connected with people in the ACC office. And from there, connections were made to give opportunities for me to do sports broadcasting on the TV side. In addition to playing basketball at UVA, I was also pretty involved in Athletes in Action and Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which is where I actually met my husband and a lot of really close friends. And that was a really cool intersection between sports and just a lot of the pressures and things that you experience there as an athlete. And then with faith and figuring out, just learning a lot. I had a lot of really cool mentors from there too that helped me in a very formative couple of years of my life in college.
I had a pretty targeted role coming into UVA. I actually knew exactly what I wanted to do, which is a very strange thing, I think, for a first year coming into university. I sought out the baseball coach before I even came to campus, wanted to work closely with that team, and was fortunate enough to get a student manager position with them for 4 years. Had great couple of years there with 2 College World Series appearances. And I learned more than I ever could have imagined working with the team there. It really opened up several doors for me, and I was able to gain so much experience just through being on the field every day and seeing how baseball operates at that level. Not having played baseball, it was a great experience just to see coaches and how they interact with the players, and also learn a lot about the technology at the college level to translate into professional sports. I picked the McIntyre School because I loved math and really wanted to get to the business side. Although baseball is a game, I realized it was also a business. And so I think choosing that path has really helped me excel as well. And in the background of being based in the office and needing those hard skills every day to get my job done. I was also part of a sorority at UVA and really enjoyed my well-rounded experience there. It was a great opportunity to try millions of different things and learn a lot of different areas, throughout industry of baseball, business, and also make a lot of good friends and connections that have helped me to where I am today.
And actually, I can relate to that. I was also a student manager at UVA for women's basketball. And that's actually how I met Chelsea. But for Cynthia and Chelsea, how had your experience as student athletes influenced how you approach the world of sports and the business of sports?
I'll go ahead. I think what you learn when you're an athlete at UVA is you have to be so like the best you can be at time management. So like you really didn't sleep in very much, right? Like you had your days that you knew you had to get up and get to the gym because you had to lift before classes, because you knew you had practice in the afternoon. So after you lift, that's when you did your homework. You know what I mean? Like you really like had to make your day this like really like incredibly like ODD, like it's like an ADD thing. You have like this list every day where every hour is sectioned off. I did the same thing in college where I almost knew by hour where I was going to be, what I had to be doing. And that to me, working in sports, because sports is so fluid and it changes all the time, and with news, and just to have like a general day set out every day has helped me a ton. And at UVA, having all those pressures on my time, having that kind of list was a great way to manage now today. And it drives my family crazy, by the way, because I do the same thing with my family and what we're all doing, and they think I'm insane, but it definitely helps at least me make sure that we're all like kind of on the same page. But hope that answers.
I love that. I feel like I'm the similar way. Everything's very structured. We're very routine oriented. I mean, I think student athletes in general thrive on a routine. At least I do. And so I totally agree right off the bat. Time management is a huge thing that you learn how to be good at if you're not already good at it. I think for me too, I played for Debbie Ryan, who was a coach there for over 30 years. She was a coach pre-Title IX. And so she would share stories with us about, you know, having to ride buses through the night to get from playing, you know, in one state to the next, whereas we had charter flights by the time I was a student athlete, full scholarships to pre-scholarships for women. And so you just got to hear these stories from her and women like her who had sort of, it just allowed us to have a perspective that I don't know that you would have necessarily gotten had we not. I had played for her for 3 years with somebody who had seen all of that. And so just gratefulness, I think gratitude, thankfulness, those traits really allowed me to, it's so easy to get caught up in the incredible facilities and all that you have and take it for granted in a lot of ways. And I think that playing for Debbie specifically allowed me to have a perspective of gratitude and thankfulness, the ability to take advantage of opportunities when you get them and the importance of doing that. So in the sports world now, as those opportunities came for me, you realize how valuable they are. I think also being a student athlete, you, for lack of a better word, you almost figure out how to work for different managers. So as a student athlete, you're not necessarily working for them, but you're under different authorities, from your coaches to your academic coordinator, to your tutors, to your professors, and you're having to learn how to work and thrive under different management styles. And I think that really served me well over my course of my 4 years to then, in my internship early on, and then working at the Virginia Athletics Foundation, and then in broadcasting, different environments, different expectations, different management styles from bosses that I had experience in over my 4 years as a student athlete, having to have harder conversations or navigating the way that different people communicate or different coaches or professors handle situations. And so I felt like that was another area where you've got a lot of pressure, you've got high expectations set on you as a student athlete from a lot of different people that you're having to balance. And so from the moment you step on grounds, that's sort of just gives you great opportunities to learn how to respond. And even if you mess up or don't do a great job, you've got just so many opportunities to keep learning how to work under different management styles and figuring out the best way to be efficient under those different management styles.
Yeah, thanks for answering. I think there's also a common misperception that you have to actually play the sport to be able to work in this industry. But Haley, would you be able to talk a little bit about your student manager experience at UVA too as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I mentioned before, it really opened up the doors for me to be able to pave my way into a career in sports. And what was so unique about it is just the access to all of the different technology, the coaches' time, the players, and just the interaction on a daily basis. I think having been on the other side now, I've recognized how much access I had to up and coming technology that it helped me transition into the professional sports platform. From TrackMan, Rapsodo, virtual reality, all those things are things that we were using at the time at UVA, and I didn't realize that Major League Sports were using them as well. And I think having learned those skills there was very valuable, as well as the time with Coach O'Connor. He really helped guide me into getting internships every summer, provided a platform for me to learn. I was charting baseball games, I was charting practices. I was really able to just dive completely in there and learn all aspects of the game. And that was something that, I found very unique, especially even to UVA. I think that the amount of resources that there are is crazy. And I just am so thankful for everything that was given to me there. And also just the opportunity to go to the College World Series. That was just an added bonus for us, to kind of the icing on the cake for my fourth year winning the College World Series. That was pretty amazing. And to see where they've come again this year, it's just a great baseball club. And I really, am thankful for the opportunity. And I've met a lot of different people through it, for Brian O'Connor, Jonathan Mariner, who was also a McIntyre grad. He used to work in the commissioner's office and he helped me progress my career. So I think really the connections, as well as the technology platform, I use TrackMan on a daily basis with Oakland, as well as virtual reality technology to help better our major league club. And I think some of those sports science initiatives that we have access to at UVA is really helping grow people that work there now for the team, and also helped my experience.
I think all of us have touched a little bit on people who have impacted our lives in different ways, but can you, let's start with Cynthia. Would you be able to talk about mentors at UVA and how they've shaped and what they've taught you in your journey?
Oh my gosh, mentors are so important. It's funny, Chelsea, you mentioned Deb. I played for Jane Miller for 4 years at UVA, both field hockey and lacrosse. Believe it or not, we played both. We basically kept the same shoes. Same everything. Most of us did. I see a couple of my teammates are actually on the call, which is so nice. Hi, Becky. Hi, Aaron. So I think that what's special about having a mentor, whether it be female or male, Jane was terrific. She was very structured. She kept a really cool head about her. She wanted to win. I really learned a lot from her on the field, and also just off the field, and how you accept a loss, not well, but how you do it and how you become a better person and a sportsman. I also think though, you can also look, you don't have to just look for female mentors. There was a gentleman named Wood Seelig who was one of the assistant athletic directors when I worked for VAF as my internship. And he was so good at teaching me how to make a cold call. Because I was like, how am I going to call these local Charlottesville businesses and ask them if they want to sponsor the halftime of a basketball shootout kind of thing. That was my job in promotions. I was an intern. And he's like, just talk to them. Just talk to them. Don't be a robot, just talk to them. So he's always in my head of just talk to people. We're all human. And that sales doesn't have to be so nitty gritty, hard and scary. I learned a lot from him, and we still keep in touch today. So I guess what I'm saying is look for mentors everywhere. It doesn't have to be a structured, formal thing, but talk to people that you like what they're doing and ask them, hey, could we get a cup of coffee, or could I find out more than what you're doing? I guarantee you they say yes. It doesn't have to be a formal, a drawn out contract. It can be a really a very simple, I have some ideas, I want to bounce them off you type thing. But always, look for mentors out there, because I'm sure they would love to help you.
Yeah, I think Jane is great. She wasn't coaching anymore. She was in administration by the time I was an athlete, but she was for sure instrumental, and somebody that as a student athlete was always around our program. But then certainly once I graduated, I think it even made a deeper connection. I don't know if you might agree, Cynthia, but working in and around the athletics department after you finished playing and could kind of look back and learn all the business aspects of where the money came from for scholarships and how the facilities got to be where they are. You don't really know that as a student athlete, which in some senses you've got a lot going on. You don't necessarily have time to do all that. But I think the athletics department has also done a really good job. At least I've seen it over the years, of really being intentional about trying to make that connection of here's all the things that you have and here's where it comes from. And then the importance of, making sure there's relationships formed there between the people that support and then the student athletes. And Jane, I think, was somebody that was really passionate about women in sports and seeing women get opportunities both on the men's and women's side of athletics. And so she was really intentional with doing mentoring groups of women that were working within UVA athletics. And so whether they were former athletes or not, she would host groups of us and do different things. She'd have different women come speak. She would connect us with different women, and just was really intentional about wanting to know what we wanted to do and how she could help us get there. And so I really appreciated all that Jane did for me. And she's been a great resource and, friend, and just somebody who's super passionate about Virginia athletics. And again, similar to Debbie Ryan, who also is still around and connected in so many ways, shares a passion for seeing women exceed. And the fact that they've come from a point where over the course of their lifetime in athletics have seen it truthfully transform from really not having any opportunities, let alone things that are at the same level as the men's side, and have watched that grow and have been women that have worked hard to get it to where it is. So I totally agree that Jane's been somebody in my life too that's been really helpful and a great mentor.
I have to say, go Jane Miller. She also was instrumental in my first year at UVA in my transition. So just seeing the years across all of us is actually phenomenal, and a testament to the fact that really great people investing in us is an awesome thing. We're kind of going to transition to our experiences in athletics. So this is a question for anybody, and so we can just kind of jump in. But how does the experience, do you think, differ as a woman working for a men's league, athletic league versus a women's athletic league?
I can jump in and take that one, Anna. I think, for me, I've never worked in a women's league, but I can see the men's aspect side of it. Being the only woman out there at the field every day, it's just even things as small as what do I wear to a tryout? How do I act? Things that you can't really see passed down from older scouts to younger scouts just because there isn't a representation for you. And I think some of those small things are taken for granted every day from some of the men that make our life a little bit harder, just things that they don't have to think through that we do. I also think that we're constantly trying to prove ourselves every day. For me, I want to make sure that I am putting my best foot forward, proving that I can evaluate talent as best or even better than some of the men in my group. And I think sometimes, some people in the industry are looking for your first misstep and looking for ways that, you don't necessarily fit in. And I think that's my constant challenge in the industry. And I've been fortunate enough to have a great support group through all the clubs that I've been with, Oakland, Cincinnati, and Boston. And I think, all of the people have shaped it, as you guys were just talking about, the people in the support group around me, and even former athletes at UVA on the baseball club have come around me to kind of help guide me through the industry. But I think, the major difference for me is just that I don't look the same as everyone else. But if you really take a step back and you look at everyone around me in the front office, there's only one person that's played baseball at a college level. The rest of them don't have much baseball background or experience on the field. And I think that's just what it is. It's just, I'm a female and they're male, and but our backgrounds are really the same. It's just appearance wise. And I think, but unique to what I bring to the table is that I have a different perspective than they do. And I think that really adds a different discussion element into trades and acquisitions, scouting, and anything we talk about in the front office. I just bring a different perspective. And I think that has been really appreciated and makes a difference for our club to get an advantage as we move to try to build a competitive team.
I'll go ahead. Haley, to your point about perspective, I think that is something that as women in this pretty male-dominated industry, I think we should be really proud and provide our perspective, because we are the fans as well. I mean, think about, 50% of, probably more than 50% of baseball fans are women. It's probably more. It's probably more like 60. For the PGA Tour, it's a little bit more like 60, 40% are women. And then in basketball, I'm sure, Chelsea, from your experiences too, it's really important that we talk to the female fan, right? So even though I'm in a very male dominated office, and it's like, yes, but 9 out of 10 of us are men working for the PGA Tour. I think it's really important that we have a voice, and we are verbal, and we say, for example, we represent Golf Digest, and they're doing a last month, they're like, we want to do a buddies trip story about the guys and where they go and what they do, buddies golf trip. And I was like, guys, why don't we do a women's trip, too? And they're like, oh my God, right? Wow, you think they do that? And so I shared with them the last couple of years, I have been doing a women's golf trip that is so much fun. We all look forward to it. We all dump our kids with our awesome husbands, and we go for 2 nights and play a ton of golf and drink wine and have a great time. But if I didn't say that, they never would have done that. So there'll be a piece that they're running in September. But my point is speak up. we're only helping the bottom line, and we're trying to grow our sports and our fields. Why not give a female perspective?
Yeah, I totally agree. My experience is I've called a couple of men's games. And so working, being on the women's side, most of the analysts, if not all of the analysts covering women's games, they have a women analyst. You're working with a man a decent amount of the time as the play-by-play guy. But I've had the opportunity to spend time around some women who have been really seen as women who have paved the way, for lack of a better term, in the men's side of broadcasting. So Doris Burke, Jessica Mendoza, Debbie Antonelli, women that you're seeing calling as analysts on the men's side. And you hear from them sort of the path that they get there and the interactions they have. And similar to what you were saying, Haley, it's like just the expectations and people looking for you to make a mistake, the weight and pressure of their preparedness. Of course, you prepare just as much for a women's game as you're going to for a men's game, but it's almost like this extra pressure on the men's side when you're going to call the game as an analyst to make sure you really know what you're talking about. You have so much credibility as a player. That's where a lot of your credibility comes from. I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about as an analyst, because I played this very sport. And so, even if a female like a Jess Mendoza played softball, there's still just that level of looking for her to make a mistake. And so they've talked about the pressure that they feel to make sure that they're really, really prepared. But then they also recognize the importance of that, because the more successful they are, the further they can go with their career, the better job that they do and continue to be in the spotlight. It's only continuing to open doors for more and more women behind them. So they also acknowledge the importance of, for them, helping women come up behind them. So they sort of pave that way. And then it's like, let me turn around and see who I can help bring up with me and, themselves be mentors to women. And so I think that's been something for me to see women like that succeeding, and to be really intentional with their preparedness has been something that, again, only helps women in the industry. And I think they've shared the importance of, though there's a lot of pressures and things that they have to deal with or navigate through or think through that are unique to being a woman. I think it's a challenge that they've taken on. I just need to be really good at my job, and the better that they do and the more successful they continue to be, the more and more opportunities that I think they're going to have to help women behind them as well.
And I think recently we've seen a lot of things, headlines in the news, first woman official referee, first woman things. There will be a time where that will be the norm. But Haley, would you be able to talk about kind of your experience as the first woman in the Oakland A's front office to be hired as a talent evaluator, and what your experience has been like in the MLB?
Yeah, it's been great. I've actually been very fortunate talking about women mentors. Kim Ng, who was recently named the first general manager in baseball. And it's great to have someone like that that's paving the way and helping us other women come up in the organizations. And I worked closely with her in the commissioner's office, and she's been a great mentor for me, just kind of helping me understand being a woman in the workplace of baseball and understanding how the industry is from a business side as well as, pure baseball side. But it's been awesome. The Oakland A's have been a great support system for me. I actually was an intern for them in 2015 upon graduation from UVA. And they sent me to scout school, which was a super cool experience. It's hosted by old MLB Bureau scouts. And I was able to meet people from all 30 clubs and learn a ton about scouting. And I think, them putting their investment in me that year really showed a lot. And I really enjoyed meeting all these people from different clubs, and it kind of helped me, gain a little bit more of a foot in the industry and feel more comfortable out there scouting. And I think from there on, I just continued to want to go out and seek those opportunities. I've been very fortunate. I get to do amateur, international, and pro scouting, which is extremely fun. One day is no like any other day. And I get to go to our Dominican complex and scout. I get to go out and see professional baseball games and scout, and I get to go to amateur games, which is really fun dynamic between the three. They're all so different. UVA, really helped me build that foundation of understanding what talent looks like. And I've kind of run with it from there. Being a woman in the industry, it's exciting. I really want to excel to help other women. I constantly try to bring women in as interns. I like to have them in our office, kind of show them the way, bring them out to events, show them what it's like, to be in our job on a daily basis, and show them that, even if you're not necessarily the best scout, there isn't an endpoint for you there. There's so many other things that are important in terms of getting your job done than just scouting. And even our guys that have been doing it for 40 years have some things to learn. So I think, it's always achievable. There's no floor, ceiling for you for how far you can reach as a woman. You can do anything that you want to do and constantly grow as long as you put your mind to it and you want to go that far. And I think the A's have really allowed me to do that. There's no boundaries on what I'm able to do and the jobs that I want to perform. I can put my voice out there and say, hey, I want to go out and scout this event, and they pretty much let me do that. So that's exciting for me, and it's been a great launching point. I'm not confined in a box, and I love that about the athletics. It's pretty unique since they're such a small market team, that it's been a great learning and growing experience for me, and I hope that it'll continue to be that way moving forward, and we can add some more women to the office.
I think that's a great kind of jumping point to our next question. We have some super moms in our panelists, but would you be able to talk about the challenges and opportunities and lessons you've kind of learned from your experience of working in athletics? This could be a question for anyone.
And are you asking, being a mom, how we're balancing it? Is that the question?
You can either talk about that, or you could talk about other challenges in the athletics working world and what kind of lessons you've learned from that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, what I said at the beginning is it's really about time, and that is our currency, right? So we're trying to be the best, best balancing act we can between our jobs, and then as our position in our communities, trying to be good citizens, and then being moms and good wives and good daughters and good friends. So that's the biggest challenge, I think is just time, because you want to do a lot. You want to help a lot of people. And certainly us as women, this group, I'm sure these panelists would be just like me. If anyone reached out to me and said, could you give me 15 minutes to talk about the PGA Tour, how you got there? Of course we'll say yes. So, I mean, it's just like, I guess the challenge for me is really time. I mean, that might just be because I'm in the middle of teenagers now and college and that whole nonsense, but it's not always going to be that way. So Chelsea, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but I guess for me, it's really time is my challenge.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we talked about how time management is a skill that you really learn, but I think now in this season of life, it's how do you learn what to say no to? How do you prioritize? Because that does matter. And I know, broadcasting requires a lot of travel and a lot of preparation that goes into it. And I think that's for me figuring out those boundaries and those lines. And we're in the little years. I've got 3 kids under 3. And so right now, the season looks a little bit different than maybe 2 years, even when some of the kids were even babies or pre-kids. I've just had to learn how to adjust and navigate with opportunities that come up with work, and doors that kind of open and you could jump through and do more and take on more and go further. And those are great, and those are all good things. And then you've got so many demands at home as a mom and a wife, and serving and loving your family and figuring out what am I called to do in this season of life? What do I need to say no to? What are my priorities? And so you don't always get it right. You fumble your way through some of that. But I think certainly having that foundation as a student athlete and learning the time management is really helpful. And now just kind of in that season of figuring out what does it look like to balance all of that, and what do I need to say no to, because at the end of the day, there just isn't time to do everything well. And so learning how to say no and how to prioritize is a challenge, but I think one that you just take on in stride. And I've learned that my husband played baseball for 7 or 10 years. And so he just finished playing this past year, but our whole, since we've been married, I just refer to it as seasons of life, because the baseball season is, October to March to October, and then we would come home and I would do basketball from November to March. And so he would be in his off season. And so I've started referring, we just kind of live our lives in seasons, and no season's the same and things are constantly changing. But in this season of life, it's learning what I need to say no to so that I can be whatever I'm doing it really well and being really present.
We're going to pivot towards questions surrounding empowering other women in this industry. But this is a question for Cynthia and then Haley. But professional sports, from athletes to management, have long been dominated by men. But from your perspective, what is the importance of supporting and recruiting the advancement of women in the business of sports? And what have we achieved in recent years? And what work do you think we still need to do?
I'm so glad you asked that question. It's a great one. Women in male dominated fields, whether it be sports, it could be technology, changes have been made, and a lot of that actually started with men, great men, great leaders, great husbands, great dads, right? I think now with the paradigm of, women, it's very, very normal for women to be, in the workforce. I feel like now the onus is on us. It's on the women to really step up. And I think many of us have, don't get me wrong. I just feel like, we are going to be the change agents for this, and, making sure that when we see candidates or our companies are hiring people, just make sure there's women in the mix that we feel are great candidates. I just feel like we could, keep with our network and think about our network when there's openings, or you hear of other people that have openings, because it is kind of a small industry, this our sports industry. And again, I would really use our network that we've seen, that we've all built. And UVA has been a big part of that. I mean, that was really the core of where we all started. And if we can help connect the people that we know to other roles in sports, or really wherever they want to head, I mean, I think that's where we win. We're certainly not there yet, Anna. It's nice to see Carla Williams as our new AD. I think that's cool. Well, not new anymore, but I think that's really cool. We could just do better. But I think it starts with the men, and I think they've, done a great job, and they'll continue to be, but I think we really need to step up now.
I agree with Cynthia. I mean, it's such a tight network. We really need to use each other the best we can to kind of grow this industry and help women get in. I mean, it's just really a lot of it's being in the right place at the right time. And there's a lot of great women out there. They just haven't had the opportunity to showcase that to anyone. And I think that's one of the biggest downfalls that we have right now. And for me, I think taking every opportunity to be a role model to whoever's around you, sometimes it means a lot to people. Just as Cynthia was talking about before, to pick up the phone and talk to them for 5 to 10 minutes is huge. And to give them that insight that you have and the experience that you have, sometimes it's hard to take a step back and realize how much knowledge you actually have about working in sports and how much information and guidance you can give to other people. And I think continuing to do that is going to be the biggest thing. But yeah, leaning on each other and helping other women get in is huge for us. And there's not that many spaces, as Cynthia said, to get into the industry. So you really have to have that help sometimes.
This is a question for all, but we can start with Chelsea. But where do we think we can shine a light on women in the business of sports, and how can we better support women in athletics?
Yeah, I think certainly initiatives like this are great, where women are able to share their stories. One thing that I love about this panel, and just in general connecting with not only UVA grads, but people in the sports business, is how unique and different everybody's path is, whether it's as a player in professional sports or, other women in the industry. So I think sharing that, your stories, and understanding that everybody's come from different places gives, I think it gives credit to the fact that you can be coming from different places and doing different things and still get to the same place as men do in this business. And so I think sharing our stories, I think, being willing to put yourself out there, to not be afraid to just grab coffee with different people. Networking is so important. Relationships are so important. That is absolutely something I learned foundationally as a student athlete, but then working in athletics, in development and fundraising, and then certainly on the broadcasting side. was so cool to get to have played in the ACC. And then once I started doing broadcasting, you form this relationship, because I started primarily, I do a ton of games within the ACC, and I've since expanded to do the whole, a bunch of different conferences, but you get to learn the league, the ACC, the commissioner, kind of all the different people that are involved to put on regular season and then the conference tournament. And you recognize how important those relationships are, because those are people that can help propel your career, that care about you, that want to see you do well. And so I think networking, I think relationships and recognizing how important that is a way that women can continue to get opportunities in this business and can continue to be seen and share their stories just through connections with people that are in different places than they are.
I think just off Chelsea's point, no opportunity is too small to take. I think everything, you could meet someone that could help, propel your career forward. You could learn something about the business that really helps you in 5 years down the road, or something when you're working on a certain project. Really take anything that you have around you that interests you. Interest is really what's going to drive you the furthest in the industry, and your passion for what you want to do. So, no job or task is really too small, is the biggest takeaway I have in terms of women wanting to get in there. Really just follow your dreams and your passion.
And the last part, and I think you guys are spot on. The last part I'll add is, use technology. You guys have a great opportunity of having LinkedIn. When I graduated from UVA in 1991, that didn't exist. We were, on the phone. I called like Val Ackerman, out of nowhere. I'm like, hey, you don't know me, but I know you work for the NBA and you went to UVA. And she was so nice. But you guys have LinkedIn. Like, that is like, work, use it, because it's a great resource. And I always say, if people call me and they ask about, careers or openings that are occurring, they'll say, hey, I saw this job. I'll say, link in with me, and then look at my network and see if there's anyone I know that works at that company, and send me a note, and let's see if I can connect the dots. I'm not saying I'm going to get you that job, but maybe your resume will at least be read. I mean, that's what's so hard, is a lot of these go into the abyss, and you're not quite sure if they're even reading it, your resume, let's say, in this case. And it's always better with a personal connection, I think, anyway. But I'd say make sure you have a pretty good LinkedIn profile about what you want to do. And then I would connect with people that you've met. I'm not offended. Anytime I meet someone or I'm on a panel, people ask me to connect on LinkedIn. I absolutely, sure.
Ultimately, I think we can all agree there's more work to be done with engaging with women in sports industry and the male dominated fields generally. I think we can all understand that it's really critical to make space for women, elevate women's voices, and really create and leverage allies. But that kind of wraps up our kind of conversation right now. So we're going to move towards the Q&A with the audience. And so we're going to kind of pull questions from our section. And so we'll kind of go from there and spend some time. And yeah, so right off the bat, there is a question for Chelsea, but how did your international travel and family experiences influence your perspective as an analyst?
So I'll quickly give a background. My husband played, as I mentioned, professional baseball. He played at UVA and then was for 4 years, and then got drafted by the Orioles and was within the Orioles organization for 7 years. And then the final 3 years, so the past 3 years, we played in Korea with the Korean baseball organization, which was a wonderful experience. And we traveled there and back. Our twin boys were born there. And then subsequently we went back the latter 2 seasons. So in addition to learning how to travel internationally with babies on long flights, I can give any tips there. It was a really great experience. Just seeing the way that professional MLB, the way that worked professionally, and then coming over to the KBO, how that organization ran, getting to be around, him and those players, and just how it all worked really helps you understand and see the depths of how hard players work. It also helps you recognize it's a business. And so I learned a ton, I think, from a broadcasting and analyst perspective. I've been around it at the collegiate level, but I think it really, year after year, just seeing college athletics and professional athletics are so drastically different. And it truthfully is a business. It's your job. And so, he could share stories with you from his time as a college player and the camaraderie and the relationships. I mean, what you have, the student athlete experience, how there's so many different factors to it, from social life, you have the academics, you have your sport. And so there's a lot of other things surrounding you just playing your sport when you're at UVA, and so many cool opportunities. When it turns into professional sports and it's your job, it's your job, and there's a lot of aspects that just change the dynamics of the game. And so I think for me as an analyst, it helped me kind of see the difference between the two, appreciation for college athletics and for professional athletics as well. But the travel and experience over there was super unique, really awesome, and just continued to, again, grow in me the ability to roll with the flow. I think that's something baseball taught me, is how to just be flexible. I'm a very type A structured person, again, part of being an athlete as well. And there's a lot of things that over the years with him and in baseball, I had to learn that you just can't control, and you have to let go of some things and go with the flow a little bit more. But that, it just prepared me when we would come home in the off seasons and I would jump right into broadcasting. I was, used to the traveling and able to just kind of seamlessly transition into that. We got into some good routines. So definitely learned a lot. It was a really awesome experience, not only in Korea, but prior to that with him in the States as well. Baseball was absolutely a gift to our family, just in terms of learning so much and growth about each other, our family, and our jobs as well.
This is a question for Haley, but have you been involved with any of the scouting or recruiting of players while they're at UVA?
I have not. No, I have not been involved with any of the direct scouting or recruiting of UVA players. Unfortunately, the Oakland A's are not very high on UVA players for some reason. I think it's just I have no idea why, but yeah, for some reason we don't have a historic past. There's no grudge against UVA. It's just the fact that we have a history of not taking UVA players. There's some teams that love UVA and have a strong connection. Our scout is very close with Coach O'Connor, and we just have not gone that direction in the past. So no, unfortunately, I have not had the chance to scout at UVA or bring any UVA players over. We did have Kyle Crockett for a brief stint. We signed him last year just for a little bit through spring training, and then unfortunately released him. But yeah, hopefully in the future we'll have some more.
Cynthia, this is a question for you, but how did you pivot to the golf industry?
So I was working at Sports Illustrated for 11 years in advertising sales, and the writing was on the wall because we sold our digital business to Turner at SI. And so I'm like, I don't really know if I want to be working in magazines, just seeing the writing on the wall. So of course, it was a former colleague at SI who I was opening an office in New York at the PGA for the PGA Tour, selling sponsorships. And with that, television space like CBS, NBC, and the Golf Channel. And so I knew that was a right move to make. I really like the people. And again, that's the key, is it's not always exactly what you're selling, in my opinion. If you work with great people, it makes just the whole world better. Because if you're working with great people, you're going to get behind what you're representing. But anyway, I transitioned from selling sponsorships and just television to adding on digital when PGAtour.com was something that the tour brought in-house as well. That was also something that was subbed out so in 2012, I changed over to advertising sales. But what I'd recommend for anybody who wants to get into golf is to intern or volunteer at one of the events. We have 44 events every year, and they're all over the United States, and desperately need volunteers. We have an average about 1,200 volunteers at every single event. That's what makes the event work. So I would highly recommend, if you want to do something in golf, I would absolutely recommend talking to a local tournament. If you need to know what that tournament is, you can reach out to me and I'll help you. But go volunteer for them for a couple of weeks and see if you like it and meet people in the industry. A lot of people started that way. And our global home is down in Ponte Vedra Beach outside of Jacksonville, which is where 99% of our employees are. But we are, sprinkled around the country as well, especially around those tournaments. So I'd recommend interning or volunteering first and see if you like it and then go from there.
This is a question for everybody, but what advice do you have for people who don't currently work in the sports industry but want to make the transition?
I think as Cynthia just noted, just go find any opportunity, a volunteer opportunity or an internship and try to see if you like it. I mean, I worked for an independent minor league baseball team my first summer out of college, and I learned so much about every single side of baseball, from ticket sales to on-field work to scouting players. And it's just like, there's so many opportunities around to kind of get your toes wet and see what you may like. For me, that opportunity really showed that I really wanted to get more invested in baseball, and I loved everything about it. So I think just finding anything it possibly can. If you're unable to due to other work constraints, sometimes, with sports on TV, you can kind of practice what you'd like, whether it be broadcasting or scouting or sales or something, kind of creating your own little model from home to help, build those ideas for when you do want to talk to people and engage in those conversations. And then the last point is just networking. Again, as Chelsea's mentioned, really reaching out to every single person that you can. There's a broad network at UVA, and I know that I've used it in the past, and definitely people there are willing to help you, and reaching out to them is really beneficial, just to pick their brain about what they've done in their past and how the possible transition to that particular industry can happen. I know it's so different from sport to sport, so definitely getting the firsthand knowledge from someone that works there would be helpful.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think to your point, I remember when as I had mentioned, when I finished basketball at UVA and sort of had that moment of what am I going to do, I sort of just went on this spree of emailing and connecting with all different people at UVA, whether it was in VAF or at administration or anybody that I could get connected with, and just say, what do you do and how did you get to where you are? And, did you go to grad school? Did you not? How did you end up in this position? And there was no agenda tied to it. It wasn't even necessarily going in hoping that they would give me a job or ask. It was just, I want to know what's your path? What's your story? How did you get to where you did? And tell me more about your job. And that helped me understand different roles and maybe what I would be interested in. So whether you have a really specific idea of what you want to go into in the sports world, or you don't, and you might see a more general field that you would be interested in, I think reaching out and connecting with people within the industry or within, the UVA network, or even just within the industry in general, and just saying, can we get a coffee or can I just chat with you without necessarily a hidden agenda, just gives you the freedom and no pressure to just learn about what they did, make that connection, and then to see where it goes.
This is going to be our final question for everybody, but where do you see women in sports 10 years from now?
Oh man. So we're talking about 2031. I hope we see more women in leadership. I'll tell you that. I hope we see more women who are ADs and very high level at the league level. I really hope so. I just think it's going to become more, like you said, Anna, before. It's not going to be like the first woman who did. I think it's just going to become more like, who's the best person for this role? But I think women can add a lot to an organization. You look at all these, many boards they're all men. And I know there's a huge initiative corporately to get more women on boards, which I think is incredibly important, by the way. But I hope that more women just step up and say yes, right? And do the things like get on a volunteer board, just get yourself out there more.
I hope to see, at that point, a lot more women even applying for the jobs. At this point, I don't see a lot of applications come through for women. And I think in 10 years from now, I hope to see that number go up, by at least 10. I would imagine that would be great. I just think women cut themselves off right now from some of the opportunity that they could get by thinking that they can't achieve what they want, and so they don't even apply. And so I hope at that point there's more women that really want to get into it and actually apply for it, so we can help them get into the industry, because I can't help you, if you don't apply. So I hope that's the case moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I think to your point too, Cynthia, it will be more normal to see women that they wouldn't be a headline, the first woman this or the first woman that, and it will be more normal. I will also give this plug because I think it's important to hear for any moms that might be listening. I think that it's important too that women, if you're in a season of life or just in general, you were in the sports world, or you have to say no to opportunities because you feel like you're being called to be at home and you're with your kids, or there's other opportunities that just in that season of life you don't take time. I think being faithful to where you're called to be is also what's really important. And so I think as important as this is, and for women to continue to find opportunities and for the support and the light that we can be shining, so that it's not going to be the norm in 10 years. I believe part of that starts at home as we raise daughters and we raise men to support that and to see the importance of that. And so that work that's being done in the day-to-day with kids' lives as a mom, or if you don't have kids, as mentors or kids that you're working with or come across, nephews, whatever it might be. I think that's also a really cool opportunity that we have as women, as moms, as aunts, whatever it might be, to make this more normal, and that our kids are going to be growing up hopefully in a generation where this is more normal, and to see mom on TV calling a game is totally normal, or to see somebody in the front office or administration in a men's league is normal. And so I think that's another thing that I'm excited about personally as I look to my job as a mom and what my kids are going to be growing up to see. I think that's another way that we can in 10 years from now have a role and impact in seeing women in sports.
Thank you so much to all of our stellar alumni, our wonderful moderator, our wonderful panelists. I wondered, since we do have just 2 minutes left, we asked this question at last year's Current State of Sports panel, and we asked all of our panelists and our moderator, whether as a fan, as a manager, or as a player, what your favorite UVA sports memory was. And so I wondered if, Anna, maybe you could speak a little bit about to the manager or the fan perspective, and we can make our way around the round table quickly.
Yeah, I have to attribute my sister for getting me into the sports world, because I actually watched her be a student manager while she was in college. And so that kind of gave me a lens into kind of the possibilities. And then just a couple people on here, I have to thank all the people on here who just really impacted my journey into the sports world. But one of the biggest memories that I am really fond about is the year that in my grad school year, we actually went to the NCAA tournament, and just seeing how much kind of the hard work and fruition come into play, and just seeing how a team can come together. I still am really great friends with all of my student managers from there, and also just that team in general. So I'm really thankful for the mentorship, and that really played a big impact into me being in sports, because I actually never played basketball. So and just seeing that come into fruition has been super impactful for me. So
I love that. Oh, Chelsea, way to go. You beat me to it. Please.
Sorry, I was just gonna say Anna's sister Rachel was one of the managers when I played, and I will just give a testament to how selfless Rachel was, hardest worker ever, just an awesome person to be around. And so it's been fun to get to know Anna too, as I covered the women's team over the past few years, and now Anna was in a role. They're great. They are hardest workers, serve the team. Every player has always loved Rachel, and I know Anna as well. And so, as a player, there's so many aspects that go on behind the scenes, and it's people like Rachel and Anna who made it easier for us and more enjoyable even during practices and everything in between. So shout out to you guys for all the hard work that goes on and often unnoticed and not given credit to, because you guys really kind of were the oil to making the machine run often.
I love that. And do you want to share a little bit about maybe your own personal favorite UVA sports memory?
Sure. Mine is my fourth year. So I played 3 years for Debbie Ryan, and then my fourth year, we got a new coach, Joanne Boyle, who I also have a great relationship with and enjoyed my time with her. So the new coaching staff, our first season, we had a 4-year I guess we played Tennessee, and at the time Pat Summitt was the head coach. Each of my 4 years, it was home, away, home, away, home, away, home. So my 4th year, Tennessee came to town, and for our games, the curtains, the black curtains, they closed them for the women's games around JPJ because usually there were never enough fans. And so they would close the fans, the curtains up in the upper deck to make it look more full. And that, I think, is the only game that I can remember where it was so crowded that those curtains were pulled back, and we ended up, I think they were ranked in the top 5 at the time, and we won in overtime. And it just it was unfortunately Pat Summitt's final year of coaching, because then she would be diagnosed with dementia and has since passed on, unfortunately, but she's legendary. And so to get to play against one of her top teams and to beat them in an atmosphere like that at JPJ, have the curtains back. You talk about women in sports. And again, that was something, we always had those curtains because it just made it feel more full. It was really, really cool to be in there when those were pulled back for that.
I love that. And Haley and Cynthia, would you each be willing to share briefly?
Sure. My favorite memory is definitely the College World Series, going my junior year with the team and just being around people that are so excited to see a baseball game, and the fans and the atmosphere. It was just so awesome. I've never had an experience like that before at a baseball stadium. It's just electric. I mean, even like the rain coming in, people were excited about. And then for baseball to return after it, it's a really cool feeling to be around that and to see all the hard work that our players and put in and day out, really show off and come to a great ending for them in a season.
And I'd say selfishly, my favorite memory was when we won the national championship in 1991. It was on a Sunday, so we missed graduation. But here's what the best part was, is that each of our deans of our schools, so our 5 4th years that year, each of them came to our own little private ceremony, which was like, I was not expecting that at all. So they're like cleaning up the lawn and putting away the chairs, and they're like, let us walk down. They're like, can you guys turn off the leaf blowers so these guys can walk down? And so we had our own little ceremony for 5 of us. I mean, like, at the time I was like, oh my gosh, that's so neat. But even more, I'm like, oh my gosh, they took time out of their day to come to a women's lacrosse national championship graduation. 5 of us. Like, that meant a lot to me, like more now even than it did then. But that was my favorite memory. I always follow Virginia sports whatever. I'm following baseball now, of course, and basketball always. But there's so many great memories in UVA sports.
I love that. Well, thank you again all so much for sharing your time with us. And thank you to our audience as well for tuning in and for your insightful questions. And we in the Alumni Association are so, so grateful. So from all of us, the Virginia Club of New York, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and go Hoos.
Go Hoos.